My mother-in-law threw a huge birthday party while I was struggling to stay alive in the ICU. Nearly 50 guests filled my home for 3 days and 3 nights. When I finally returned, the flowers had withered, the floors were ruined, and I discovered my name had been tied to a $250,000 debt I had never approved. My name is Brielle Hart, and that was the day I learned that some people can smile at your table while quietly destroying your life. The hospital bracelet was still around my wrist when I unlocked my front door. The smell hit me first: stale food, spilled wine, heavy perfume, and cigarette smoke. My beautiful home looked like the aftermath of a disaster. My husband, Nolan, stood in the kitchen. He didn't look guilty. He looked irritated. His mother, Marlene, was sitting in my favorite chair, wearing pearls and the silk robe I had bought for her. "Oh, you're home," she said casually, as if I had interrupted a pleasant afternoon. I noticed a thick stack of unpaid bills beside my mail. Catering companies, furniture rentals, security services, imported flowers, private chefs. Then I saw something that made my blood run cold. My signature, forged on every contract. I slowly looked around the room and said, "You should have made sure you knew who really owns this house." Marlene's smile vanished. The room fell silent. Nolan stared at me as though I had forgotten my place. Marlene stood up, smoothed her robe, and forced a calm smile. "Don't be so dramatic," she said. "Family helps family." I held up one of the contracts. "My signature doesn't." Nolan stepped between us. "You were unconscious," he said. "Mom took care of everything. We couldn't cancel her 70th birthday just because you got sick." His words hurt more than the surgery ever had. I hadn't simply been sick. A ruptured appendix had caused a severe infection that nearly killed me. To them, it was nothing more than an inconvenience. I walked into my office. Every cabinet had been opened. Desk drawers had been emptied. Guest lists, wine receipts, and party photos covered my desk. Complete strangers had been celebrating in my garden while I fought for my life. Then I noticed my safe. The door was unlocked. Inside, the documents my late father had left me were gone. The property deed had disappeared. My father built this house with his own hands. Before he died, he left it to me alone and made me promise I would never let anyone risk losing it. At that moment, everything became clear. The fake signatures, the enormous debt, the extravagant birthday party. It had never been about celebrating. It had always been about taking my house. They believed I would return from intensive care too weak to fight back. That night I couldn't sleep. Every room reminded me of their betrayal. Walking through the house with a flashlight, I noticed several outdoor lights had even been stolen after the party. In the library, I found a garbage bag filled with opened envelopes addressed to me. Someone had gone through all of my mail. Bank statements, tax notices, insurance letters, final payment demands from the companies hired for the party. Again, every document carried my forged signature. Footsteps echoed behind me. Nolan stood in the doorway. "You're making this into something much bigger than it is," he said. I looked directly at him. "Who took my father's property papers?" He didn't answer. His silence told me everything. Finally he said, "They're safer with my mother." I couldn't help laughing. The truth had finally become impossible to ignore. For years, Marlene had told everyone I was too emotional to handle money. Now she had convinced my own husband that stealing from me was somehow protecting me. Without saying another word, I opened my desk drawer and pulled out a small digital recorder. The color drained from Nolan's face. He remembered our conversation before my surgery. The one where he admitted his mother wanted the deed to my house. And he also remembered one important detail. I recorded every business conversation that took place in my office. I pressed the play button. Nolan's voice filled the room before he could stop the recording. Asterisk, if Brielle doesn't make it, everything becomes easier. Mom says the house should stay with blood. The audio ended. He lunged for the recorder, but I slipped it into my pocket before he could reach it. The confidence disappeared from his face. Only fear remained. "You don't understand that conversation," he whispered. I looked him straight in the eyes. "I understand every single word." Marlene hurried into the library after hearing the commotion. Nolan glanced at her the way a frightened child looks to a parent for rescue. She didn't deny what she'd said. Instead, she folded her arms. "And who," she asked coldly, "is going to believe a woman who just came home from intensive care?" For a moment her words almost broke me. Almost. Without saying anything, I walked to my father's old leather briefcase and opened it. She smirked. He thought it was empty. It wasn't. My father had spent 40 years buying and selling commercial property. He trusted almost no one and he always kept backups. Inside the briefcase were certified copies of every ownership document connected to this house. The deed they had stolen was worthless. The real ownership had never been in danger. For the first time Marlene's confidence cracked. Before anyone could speak, the doorbell rang. A man in a dark suit asked for me by my full name and handed me a large envelope. Across the front were 6 chilling words. Court notice, petition to transfer ownership. It had been filed 3 days before my surgery. My hands trembled as I opened it. Nolan wouldn't even look at me. Marlene watched silently, waiting for me to fall apart. According to the petition, my illness had made me mentally incapable of managing my own finances. They wanted the court to give temporary control of my home and assets to Nolan. Attached was a medical statement signed by a doctor I had never met. I felt sick. Not because they had betrayed me, because they had planned every detail before I was ever admitted to the hospital. The birthday party wasn't a celebration. It was evidence. 50 guests. Hundreds of photographs. Dozens of videos. They wanted everyone to believe they were already running my home while I quietly disappeared. Finally Nolan spoke. Mom said this was the safest way to protect everyone. I stared at the man I had married. For years he had leaned on my strength because he had never found any of his own. My phone vibrated. A message from my attorney appeared. I had secretly hired her after my father's death because he trusted her completely. The message contained only one sentence. Don't let them know the judge called me this morning. I locked my phone immediately. Marlene narrowed her eyes. What was that? I smiled. Spam. For the first time since I came home, uncertainty crossed her face. She expected tears. She expected panic. She never expected patience. I went upstairs and entered the small workshop my father once used. Behind an old shelf of paint cans sat a locked steel box. Inside were 2 letters. One was written for me. The other was addressed to my attorney. My father had warned us that if anyone ever tried to take this house, we should investigate every financial transaction connected to it. He always said one thing. Greed leaves fingerprints. He was right. An hour later my attorney arrived. She spread documents across the same dining table where Marlene had blown out her birthday candles. Bank transfers. Wire receipts. Loan agreements. Catering contracts. Every payment pointed to one destination. Marlene's personal bank account. She had borrowed money using my name and secretly transferred a portion of it to herself. Nolan stared at the paperwork in disbelief. Then my attorney looked directly at him. You should know, she said quietly, your mother has already blamed everything on you. He slowly turned toward Marlene. She didn't blink. She simply folded her hands. Someone has to take the blame. My attorney slid one final document across the table. It was a sworn, notarized statement. According to Marlene, Nolan had arranged every loan, forged every signature, and pressured her into helping because he desperately needed money. He read the statement twice. His lips moved but no sound came out. You promised we'd face this together, he finally whispered. She met his eyes without emotion. I promised to protect myself. I should have felt sorry for him. I didn't. The man who let strangers celebrate inside my home while I fought for my life had made his own choices. My attorney looked at me. Do you want to settle this quietly? I remembered waking up alone in intensive care. I remembered the forged signatures. My father's missing papers. The birthday candles. The laughter. I gave her one answer. No. The next morning, detectives and financial investigators arrived. Neighbors gathered outside to watch. Marlene reached for Nolan. He stepped away. One investigator opened a folder and asked me, Mrs. Hart, where would you like us to begin? I pointed toward the old fireplace where my father had kept family records for decades. Open that wall. Hidden behind the shelves was a secret cabinet. Inside were ledgers, canceled checks, personal letters, and photographs my father had quietly collected over the years. He had suspected Marlene long before I ever married Nolan. Every suspicious loan. Every forged document. Every private meeting with bankers. Everything had been copied, dated, and preserved. The investigators searched the house for hours while reporters gathered outside. Nolan sat alone at the kitchen table. He never asked for forgiveness. At last he understood that love without loyalty means nothing. Marlene insisted she had only acted for the good of the family. Then a detective carried out a small metal box. Inside was cash transferred from my accounts, and jewelry that had been stolen from my grandmother years earlier. Marlene's knees buckled. She looked at me with tears in her eyes. Please, help me. I remembered lying alone in my hospital bed. I remembered the empty chair beside me. I remembered birthday music filling my house while I fought to stay alive. Then I gave the only answer my heart could offer. Take everything back. Leave nothing behind for me to remember. Justice had already taken everything that mattered.